Jackie Chan is one of the world's biggest celebrities. He starred in movies.
Thank you, Jackie. Well done.
Thank you.
Cartoons, and even commercials. But while he's loved in the West,
Everyone give a big welcome to the one, the only, the legendary Jackie Chan.
back home in Hong Kong, it's a really different story.
I think he's a traitor to democracy and freedom of Hong Kong. He's a traitor to the Hong Kong people.
Jackie Chan, the person today in the year 2020, he's not popular. He's ridiculed. People don't want to hear what he has to say just because a lot of what he says is so unintelligent.
How do we get from this
As the most recognizable face in Hong Kong, Jackie's fans are everywhere.
to this? It's because of statements like this.
Jackie Chan. The actor said that Hong Kong has become a hotbed for protest and it needs to change. He says there should be regulations on what people can and can't protest. He did not say who should make those decisions.
Jackie Chan is a proud supporter of China's Communist Party, and he's a vocal critic of Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement.
香港最近发生的一些事情，真的是让很多人痛心跟忧心，让我所到之处都感受到身为一个中国人那种自豪。五星红旗在全世界都受到人家的尊重。
Now in 2020, it's become a recurring story for many Chinese celebrities to land in hot water over expressing anti-Hong Kong views. But Jackie Chan is different, because unlike mainland celebrities like Liu Yifei, for a really long time, he was considered to be one of Hong Kong's favourite sons.
兩位唔該坐埋啲啊，Hi，做乜嘢啊？同啲伙計打招呼啦，坐先。
We think about the unique Hong Kong identity, and that identity, which really came into being in post-war Hong Kong, was rooted in Hong Kong's popular culture, and Jackie Chan has long been a part of that. So if you watch a 1980s or 1990s, film, or even earlier ones by Jackie Chan, you actually see a Jackie Chan that is very pro-Hong Kong. That is very much an embodiment of the Hong Kong spirit.
就似啲兜勁嘅你啦，又拍得幾好喎。
He actually grew up in a society that has long cherished freedoms. He made a very conscious decision to completely flip-flop on his political positions. Most Hong Kongers would remember in 1989 when there were popular protests, student protests at Tiananmen Square, which eventually led to the massacre, that there was a concert held in Hong Kong called the Concert for Democracy in China. And Jackie Chan actually participated in that concert in Hong Kong on May 27, 1989. So I think we're really talking about two Jackie Chans here. There's the Jackie Chan in the popular imagination, the hero, the protagonist, the democracy-loving guy, and then there's the Jackie Chan, in reality, who is pro-China, who doesn't know what he's talking about, who is an affront to democracy and talks too much nonsense, right? It's a sort of like the evolution of Jackie Chan is in and of itself a sad story, because it is so much an analogy of how much Hong Kong has changed. And it is, when people say they like Jackie Chan in Hong Kong, most of the time they are reminiscing a past that is long gone.
Let's not talk about this. Bring me another drink.
He came of age during a really important time in Hong Kong's history. His parents fled mainland China to escape the Cultural Revolution to settle down in British Hong Kong. In the 1970s, Jackie Chan was just a young stuntman trying to make his way in Hong Kong's rising film industry. It was there that he met another Hong Kong martial arts legend, Bruce Lee. a man who would later come to represent the pro-democracy movement in a very different way. You can actually see them both together in this scene from Enter the Dragon. Hong Kong's film industry was on the verge of blowing up.
This is Enter the Dragon.
Everyone knew that if you wanted to make serious money, your best bet was in Hollywood.
So now here you are, this huge American star. Do you want to continue working here in the States?
Of course, American Hollywood is the big. Everybody dream. Everybody actor, actress dream.
But today, that's no longer true. China is close to overtaking the US to become the world's biggest and most lucrative market. In 2019 alone, China brought in $11.05 billion, just $1 billion short of revenue from the US. Even before the pandemic shut down movie theaters, China was already on its way to overtaking the US in terms of ticket sales. This sends pretty big shock waves through the industry. Hollywood wants a bigger slice of the Chinese market. And for Hong Kong celebrities, this means scoring a blockbuster in Beijing, not Boston.
So for an actor like Jackie Chan, it makes economic sense for him to appeal to this Chinese market. Actors or actresses, even if you weren't explicitly pro-China, you would probably have wanted to tone down your pro-democracy advocacy because you need access to China and you don't want to get into trouble. But even considering this broader context, I would say that Jackie Chan does go out of his way to be politically outspoken in favor of the Chinese government. So I think he genuinely believes Hong Kong and Taiwan ought to be a part of China, and he genuinely believes that the Chinese Communist Party is a force of good for China. I think he understands his value to the regime for propaganda purposes and, again, selling China to the world. I think he knows that he plays that role, but I think he also knows that in exchange for doing all these things, he's one of the best paid actors in the world. He enjoys international popularity. I mean, outside of Hong Kong, in most places, if not everywhere, he's quite popular.
Jackie Chan's waning popularity sends another cultural shift in the city, a growing distrust of the police. The actor has played a cop at least 16 times in some of his biggest, most iconic films.
The Police Story franchise, very well known in Hong Kong. His image on film has always been a cop. So for someone whose on-screen image is so rooted in the Hong Kong police force, to also come out in support of the Hong Kong police force, it seems to make a lot of sense. Police for decades have had a pretty good image in the world in terms of its relations with the public. And so what has changed in a sense then is the perception of the police force. Increasingly, this idea that the force is not used to protect the people of Hong Kong, but to harm the people of Hong Kong. And so their popularity has quickly evaporated. And now it's, sort of, paramilitary. It is seen as the sort of force that legitimizes the Chinese government's control of Hong Kong.
Baidutao is a Chinese dissident who lives in Australia. He targets the Chinese Communist Party and its allies, including Jackie Chan.
It'd be lying if I say I never liked his movie. I mean, he was quite huge in China, especially for his early movies.
The last one really hit the spot.
For Jackie Chan, I think there are different sides of him. Well, there are positive sides, like he did introducing at least the Hong Kong movie or the Hong Kong style of aesthetics in the big screen to the Western world. However, he's always this kind of single-sided hero, And we all know this stereotype of Asians, and we all try to break this bamboo ceiling in the Western society as Asian members. So I think that's definitely a double-edged sword. Well, as an artist, I feel heavily that I should carry certain social responsibility, and artists should working on something we truly care about. And I'm born in China, and now I have the freedom to live in Australia at the moment. So I feel obligated to continuing, focusing on those important issues. Without freedom of speech and those basic rights, you can't make any good art. For Chinese government, they know how to run propaganda always, and they know the value of those stars. So they're using them as tools to promoting the Chinese image, to kind of brainwash its citizens and residents.
以华治华的把戏，美国想要和未来的中国打交道，而无视中共的存在，那是掩耳盗铃。
And also telling the world that is okay because our beloved movie star are saying we love Chinese government and we agree on its policy as well. So you either be the friend of Chinese government and the enemy of democracy, or you're sitting and standing with the Hong Kongers or Tibetan side, they're fighting for the basic human rights. And apparently so many statements, public statement has shown us that Jackie Chan chose his side.